Good morning and welcome to the EZFX Signal Trading Room for August 1st, 2016. My name is Bradley Freed. Thanks for joining. We'll be looking today at our watch list from last Thursday and updating our charts, and also looking to see what new trades we're looking to set up this week. So if you have any questions during the broadcast, we do have a chat room set up on this page. Please post your questions, and at the end of the broadcast, I will answer them live. And if you're watching the recording, you can contact me by posting to the Trading Room group. If you're not already a member, please join. And you can also private message me via the community, or you can send a mail directly to me just by regular email at ezfxsignal@gmail.com. Okay, let's get started. Last week we were watching several pairs by the end of the week. Trades that either closed or they hadn't set up, or they looked like they were going to set up. So we were looking at the Swiss yen sell, the euro dollar sell, pound dollar buy, dollar yen buy, euro yen buy, dollar peso sell, and the Aussie dollar. We weren't sure about the next direction, but I think it's becoming more clear what it's going to do next for us, what we will be looking for it to do next anyway. Our newer open trades, we have the New Zealand dollar buy was open. Then our pound trades, the euro pound sell, pound CAD buy, pound New Zealand buy, pound Aussie buy, and pound Swiss buy. So let's go to the charts and see what's going on, and we'll update our list. Okay, so starting with the watch list, the watching portion of the list, let's go to the Swiss yen. See what's happening there. All these yen pairs dropped last week, and they dropped into, if we look at the dollar yen, the pound yen, the euro yen, the Swiss yen, and even if I want to just bring them all in, like we can look at the Aussie yen and the CAD yen as well. Let's just bring it all in, because I think all of these are potential opportunities that we're going to be looking to be a part of in the near future. Yeah, New Zealand yen too. Let's just look at them all the yen pairs that we look at. So actually, let's start with the dollar yen, because it on our list, if you remember, we were looking for a buy trade. We're still looking for that buy trade, and this is perhaps the most clear of any of them. You know, this pair dropped pretty substantially on disappointing news last week. Remember, we were concerned about the BOJ announcement, and I thought perhaps it would break out, but it turns out it was pretty disappointing. And you know, we got stopped at a break even after taking some profit on this trade, and then it dropped further. So now we have a buy bubble. We have new divergence, which appeared inside this demand zone, giving us a class A signal. And we're one thing away from buying this pair. And that one thing is probably a triangular moving average color change. This zone here is so thick. If we look at it in pips, this demand zone is 418 pips thick. So it's not really suitable for trying to set a stop loss in terms of setting it below. And sometimes this happens. So when we do take the trade, we're just going to use the recent low made before the trade sets up and put our stop maybe 5 to 10 pips below that. Totally acceptable way to deal with this. But I like this for a buy trade, and I think we have a lot of great targets. The easiest thing to do, again, is to use the Fibonacci. You know, if we look at the new monthly and weekly pivots, they're so close that once it breaks out and sets up, there's just not going to be a lot of room there, and there's not going to be good risk reward ratio. So I'll probably not worry about those unless this drops a lot lower first, and then those become viable targets. But what I want to focus on is just Fibonacci extension levels, retracement levels. And if we run our Fibonacci from the recent high made before this drop move started to the recent low, we've got a good 50% level here. And 78.6, which happens to coincide pretty close to last week's weekly pivot, which is also nice to see. So I would plan to use those two levels when I set up this trade, but we're still waiting for one more thing. I'm going to go ahead and move this, though, to the new category, because we're waiting for one more thing. It's very close, and it looks pretty good. Let's just kind of scan up to the 4-hour chart and see what's happening. This pair made a low here on Brexit. It went as low as 98.887. It tried to retest that low before breaking out with this bump after the election, when the Conservative Party won the upper house and consolidated their power. And then people were anticipating this big stimulus from the government. And actually they did announce a stimulus, but everything that the BOJ said was evidently so underwhelming to investors and traders that they just had a massive sell-off after the announcement. Now the question is, how far is this going to go? Are we going to see new lows? Is it going to retest this low or this low made during Brexit? This is an extreme reaction. It did get down to, below 100 here. It may retest that before it actually starts to move for us. So I really want to see confirmation, because I don't want to stop out unnecessarily. If we look at it, that's on the 4-hour chart, it seems pretty obvious to me that this is still moving downwards. On the 1-hour chart, not so obvious. It looks like this is a trend that could reverse at any time. We have a lot of bullish signals that are popping up. But I would almost say that we had a bubble here. We might get a second down bubble, a second drop before this sets up for us. So watch it. Don't jump into it. Wait for that confirmation before you take a trade. Wait for the trifecta. We have divergence. We have Class A. We have a bubble. We need one more thing. We need that triangular moving average color change. Then we look at risk to reward ratio, select our targets, see if we have a trade that we can set up with a decent stop loss size, and we'd go from there. So that was a long explanation. It wasn't the pair I started with, but let's just move through the rest of the euro-yen pairs. Now we've kind of gone in depth about the idea. Pound yen, same deal. This drop, not as much really, not as dramatically as the dollar yen. Excuse me. This pair is moving downwards. We have Class B divergence has appeared 3 times as this continues to drop. We almost had a bubble here, and then this triangular moving average repainted, and it kind of went away. So I don't really have a bona fide bubble at this point, but it's close. So I'm kind of looking for the same thing on this pair. I'd want to see a triangular moving average color change before I'd consider trading this pair in the buy direction. If we look at this on the 4-hour chart, this may be setting up to go back down and retest this Class A demand zone down here on the 4-hour chart before it does anything in the buy direction. So we want to be very careful about confirmation, demand what we need to see, and not accept anything less before we risk money on this trade. But I'm going to go ahead and put this in the new Well, on the other hand, I'm not, because we only have divergence. We don't have a bubble. We don't have a color change. So, and we don't have a zone. So let's just hold off and leave that in the watching portion of the list for now. And we'll revisit that in the near future. So at the top of the watch list, we're going to have pound yen buy. Euro yen looks a lot like the dollar yen, except we don't have a bubble. So it's gotten close to making a bubble, but it kind of bounced here, printed two divergence lines inside the zone, making it class A. This is also a really thick zone, thanks to Brexit. So it's not really usable to set a stop loss, but it's still significant. And we're still looking for some more things to happen. I want to see a bubble, and I want to see this triangular moving average line turn blue before I consider buying it. And we'll think about profit targets and other things after that happens for us. But again, check the 4-hour chart. This could be going to retest, just like the dollar yen. It could be going to retest the slowdown here. Could easily happen. So I consider this still to be a trade we're watching. Swiss yen, no buy bubble. We do have divergence inside the zone, making it class A. I would need two more things before I'd be willing to go ahead and trade this. So this is still a trade we're watching. Oh, and I forgot to make that change. Both of these are going to be buy trades, right? Aussie yen. Aussie yen has also not made a bubble. It's printed some class B divergence. It's actually made a new low here. It's still trending downwards. There's really no sign of it doing anything else at this point. The 4-hour chart, it looks like it's going down to retest at least the top of this zone. So I definitely want to watch this. I think it might be a good trade. But unless we get a buy bubble or setting up, it's not really going to convince me to take a risk until I see that required confirmation. So we have an Aussie yen. Great. CAD yen. CAD yen has made a bubble at this point. Class A zone here. We would need a triangular moving average color change to complete the trifecta and take the trade, but that's just one more thing, so we can put this on as a new trade. But we do need that color change in the triangular moving average before I will take the trade. When it does set up, shrink the chart here, we have this down move that we'll be trading against. So we have good retracement levels. We also have good pivot levels. I would look at actually the monthly pivot for last month. Yeah, stop would be below the lows, wherever that happens when the triangular moving average changes color. There may be new lows coming. And just because something is new, remember, we're not going to jump right in that trade. It just means we're almost ready. So the monthly and the weekly pivot, I think, are good targets on this once it sets up. And on the 4-hour chart, this is kind of consolidating, right? This is a little bit different from the other pairs. It's pretty close to the recent low and the Brexit low. So it doesn't have that much further to go before it might retrace. So this is a little bit different, which is interesting, even though it looks the same. So I definitely want to have this on my watch list as a new setup. And finally, there's one more yen pair I like to look at. That's a New Z yen. This has no bubble, Class B divergence. It's currently kind of bouncing off the the monthly pivot from last month. It's hit it and bounced on it twice. It may be seeking further lows as this trend continues. The 4-hour chart, actually a really shallow downtrend. I mean, this could hit this in reverse fairly easily. I'm interested in this, but I need to see more. The only point of confirmation we have right now is this Class B divergence. We need 2 more things really to get into this trade before I'd consider buying it. So I'm going to put this on the watch list. We'll see what sets up with it this week, but I need to see some more from this before I'm willing to take a risk and set up a trade on this pair. So that's our yen pairs. There's one other thing I'm watching that went too far last week, and that's this dollar Swiss. And the euro dollar as well, probably. It's worth looking at because they both kind of set up at the same time. And this moved quite a distance too, although it's in this really fat zone here, which is completely unusable piece of junk thanks to Brexit. This happened last year with the Swiss, or 2 years ago with the Swiss E2. When it had the crash, it left this huge zone that we just couldn't do anything with. So like I said before, we'll use recent highs and recent lows to set stops as stop loss estimators when we do set up trades. But this has trended higher. We actually did pretty well with this in our automated strategies as well. The mousetrap and the exploding fish strategy both made money on this. The mousetrap is actually still open and continuing to move higher. This is an interesting trade. I saw some people online panicking about this, saying that the dollar was getting hammered or crushed, and I'm like, it's not really. Some people are even saying, oh, it's time to buy gold. The whole, the sky is falling kind of BS that people like to talk about, but it's not. If we go to the daily chart, this is all it did, right? Brexit drop, retracement, maybe going back to pre-Brexit levels to retest, like 1.14204 to this supply zone on the daily chart. Look at the weekly chart. The euro got pounded in the last 2014, 2015. This pair just died, and this was because they had to deal with their bad debt problems by printing money. All kinds of problems in the eurozone, and since then it's been ranging. So this isn't getting crushed. It's moving within a large range. You don't need to buy gold. You don't need to buy Iraqi dinars. You don't need to do anything stupid like that. When it breaks out of this range, then it's significant. Then we should start to think about, okay, well, there's something significant happening to the macroeconomy being reflected in what's going on with this pair. But until it goes above 1.17, 1.1737 or whatever this recent high here was, I don't think the dollar's getting crushed against this pair. But for our purposes, this is moving in the buy direction, so we're looking for a sell setup. We have a sell bubble. We have Class B divergence. If we got a triangular moving average color change, I would consider selling this pair. We're not quite there yet. And it's really not as clear as this one, which is much more clear, I think, because there isn't that big Fed zone probably. But we have this bubble, this buy bubble, fairly clearly appearing. It's a big one because it's dropped really hard last week. We have divergence, and we're waiting for one more thing. So dollar Swiss buy, that's something I'm interested in. Again, not right now, but I am interested in it if it sets up and shows me something that indicates that it's going to go in a buy direction. Okay, so your dollar sell is still just on the watch list. Pound dollar buy, what did the pound dollar do? And this has actually been moving in the buy direction. It didn't necessarily have the most clear setup. We didn't get a buy bubble at all. We got a triangular moving average color change plus a class B demand zone. And it's been moving higher. This is still ranging. And to be honest, I think that the future direction is unclear at this point. We don't have a setup. In this case, until I get a bubble, I'm just not going to touch it because it's been ranging for so long. But a bubble will tell me, one, which direction I should be interested in, and two, that something big is happening in this pair that we should be paying attention to. So I'm going to leave it on the watch list for now. Dollar peso sell. Dollar peso is a trade, is a pair that works really well with our system. This has set up a trade. So we have a sell bubble. We have a triangular moving average color change. We have a class B supply zone here. We have a retracement. If we were going to sell this pair, right now the required stop is over 200 pips, so I'm not really interested in selling it. But we'd have a stop above the zone. If this continues to retrace, then it may give us an opportunity to get in. We have a new weekly pivot. We have a new monthly pivot. Those might be good targets for us. But I need to see more retracement on this pair before I can trade it. I need it to be 150 pips or less to get into that trade. And I need a risk to reward ratio of at least 1-to-1 on the first target and at least 2-to-1 on the second target. So keeping those things in mind, I'm going to leave this in the watching portion of the list, but let's keep an eye on it because it may be getting ready to give us a sell opportunity that we can use. Aussie dollar, that was the last thing that was in our watching list. Looking for, it's been moving in the buy direction. We're looking for a sell setup. We have a sell bubble. We don't have anything else. So it's starting to show that it's a little bit overdone. It's starting to show us that a sell opportunity may be appearing, but the other things that we need to see aren't there yet. So I'm going to just call the next direction sell. It's pretty obvious that's the next direction we're going to be thinking about. And we'll keep it in the watching portion of the list. Okay, let's go to our open trades, Newsy dollar. I sent a signal at the end of last week to go ahead and move the stop to break even. We did hit our first profit target. We blew right through it, almost got to the second profit target, then started setting up some class B divergence. We actually had a small class A supply zone here, but it got punched through and invalidated. We have a sell bubble on this pair, kind of like the Aussie dollar. Doesn't mean it's ready to go all the way down yet, but it means that it's maybe a little bit overdone versus where it's been as this trend has been progressing. At this point, I'm still in the trade, at least trying to get to the 78.6% Fibonacci retracement level. But if more things set up, right now we have class B divergence and we have a sell bubble. If we get a color change in the triangular moving average, then that would be a trifecta, and we can go ahead and sell this pair. So I'm keeping it open as a buy, but just remember that we need to be looking for exit signals. And if we get an exit signal, then that means that it's time to think about a sell trade. So moving on to our long-term pound pairs. Oh yeah, New Zealand dollar I wanted to mark on our list because I did send signals out about this. Okay, starting with the euro pound sell, what's going on? This has been moving against us towards our break-even stop. I'm still in it because those are the rules. That's what I do. The Brexit drop, the Brexit breakout, and then it made a high. Class A dropped. We were able to take profit at this first target. I want to get down to the monthly pivot for last month. It hasn't been cooperating. It's been moving back towards the high made from the Brexit. I'm still in this at break even. I'm still going to stay in this trade because that's what I do when I test. There are pips on the table to take profit with. I struggle with this a little bit, but if I want to trade like I test, if I want to do the things and achieve the things that I can do in back testing, then I need to follow the rules. So I'm staying in this. If it does stop out of break even, I'm not going to lose anything, and it may set up a new sell opportunity at this zone, this Class A zone up here, and then we can try it all over again once we have signals and a new opportunity to take it. I do believe in the end I'll be able to get back down to that monthly pivot, and there is profit waiting there. So I'm still in this. It may stop out at break even. If you're in this and you're concerned about it, you can always take profit anytime you want, really, and close it out. But I'm holding on, and that's true of all these pound pairs. Let's look at the pound CAD. This really hasn't been moving against us significantly. This is the 4-hour chart. If we go to the 1-hour chart, we have had a triangular moving average color change. We haven't had a sell bubble. We haven't had any divergence. It's just kind of moving in its range. On the 4-hour chart, it's a little more clear. From here, if it consolidates and then breaks out higher, we could get to our monthly pivot target up here. So this is looking better. They aren't all universally going towards their break-even stops. Next, we have our pound newsy. This one has been dropping. We had on the 4-hour chart, we had a triangular moving average color change. We've had Class B divergence, and it seems to be moving lower. We still have quite a bit of distance to our break-even stop. I'm not too worried about it. I'm still holding on to see if we'll get a reversal and then a breakout higher. We are starting to get on the 4-hour chart the beginnings of a buy bubble, which means this may be reaching the extent of its movement in that direction. Just a peek on the 1-hour chart, we definitely have a buy bubble here. So yeah, I'm thinking that we just hold on. There are stops that break even on this pair. There's no risk, but there is a lot of upside if it starts to move again towards the monthly pivot. There's a huge amount of upside. So we're in a very good place. And once you get to this place, once you've taken profit, move the stop to break even, and you have profit extension possibilities, that's a very nice place to be, and you just leave your trade there, because a few times a year, you're going to have those opportunities, and if you capitalize on them, they can be a huge part of your annualized percentage return on your account. Pound Aussie buy. This is the only one of these pound pairs we still have stop risk on. Our entry price was down here at 1.72487. We're not there yet. The triangular moving averages change color on the 4-hour chart and the 1-hour chart. There's no buy bubbles. There's nothing. It's been moving lower and kind of bouncing off this demand zone. So I'm still holding on to this. I think it could easily reverse. And again, we want to at least get to this weekly pivot from a couple of weeks ago, from last week. Is it last week? Is it longer? It must be longer than that. Yeah, no, it's a month. It's a month ago. So 4 weeks ago would be our first target, and I'm holding on to see if we can get there. And finally, pound Swiss. This is the one that's closest to its break-even stop. We are getting close to having a buy bubble on it, like some of the other pound pairs. It may break out. It may stop out at break even before that happens. If it does, this is a Class A demand zone down here. There's another buy setup may happen. For example, let's say it stops at a break even, it hits this zone, and then we get a new Class A divergence line. We get a triangular moving color change and a buy bubble. I could buy this pair all over again and try for the same targets. So don't despair if somebody stops at a break even. There'll be new opportunities. And the best thing about that is you've already taken profit on the trade and you've taken your risk off the table. So even if you stop out, you're not going to lose anything. So that's where we are at this moment in time. I'm going to have more updates for you this week. We're watching a lot of pairs, especially those yen pairs. Right now, the ones I think that are closest to giving us trades, new trades, are the dollar yen, the CAD yen, and the dollar Swiss. So keep an eye on those. And I'll be sending signals as things develop. And we'll be meeting again tomorrow for another edition of the EZFX Signal Trading Room. Just want to check and see if we have any questions on the site before we go today. And we do not. So again, if you have questions, go to the community. You can private message me. My handle is EZFX. Please join the trading room group and post questions there and participate in participate in any discussions that are underway. And you can also email to me directly at ezfxsignal@gmail.com. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the trading room. So I'll see you then. Take care and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.